Hi, this is the Five Insider. I'm here with Danny Murphy, debut.
Yep.
And David Ornstein. Thanks for coming. Listen, man, it's the morning of the game. This is the preview of England versus Senegal. I cannot wait for this game tonight. Listen, guys, what are we thinking?
Normally don't do well on debuts.
No?
Nah.
Well, what's your record?
I missed a one-on-one. Liverpool last minute on my debut. Only a keeper to beat. Put it right in his hands. So we'll see. Hopefully we'll do better.
Sounds like a stage review for that period of your whole career.
It has. It hurt me, yeah. Didn't score again for 18 months.
Listen, we're here at the World Cup. You've been inside the camp. Can you give us an idea of what the vibe is like in there?
Yeah, it's good. It's really good. One, because it's a pretty solid group, actually, and I'd be intrigued to know your feelings on that because you've been part of them. But it's got a good blend of youth and experience. There's no sort of factions from what I've picked up from seeing or listening to people that I speak to. Obviously, there was the Ben White situation, and we wish him all the best. But apart from that, it's been carefree from what we've heard. You don't know behind closed doors because you get to see 15 minutes of open training session, then they kick us all out and let battle commence. One thing that they've benefited from is not traveling around at a major tournament normally. So they've unpacked their bags. They're in a hotel that they're all happy with. There's a good atmosphere around the place. But it's not all sweetness and light now, Rio. It's time to turn the screw and we're going on to the knockout stage. All of these interviews that they give and they play darts with the media and everyone's laughing and joking around. Well, it's game face on now because they're 90, 180 minutes penalty shootout away from packing their bags and going home from the tournament that the FA identified in 2013 for England to win. And there's some big boys left in this competition. There's some surprise packages who have made it through. It's the first World Cup where all 6 populated continents have representation in the knockout stage of the tournament. And that shows the strength in depth. It shows the breadth of quality in this competition. And if England show any complacency, they're on that flight home.
This is the toughest test, isn't it? I mean, it's nothing to be scared of, but it's the toughest test. I think so. They've got some quality, they've got some pace. And we've had 3 games really that we've cruised through, haven't we? I still think although we can beat them, we've got to be careful.
You're speaking about the squad there. I'm interested to know what you think, Dan. We were in squad back in the day. How did you find it in the squads? I quite enjoyed it. I liked it.
I loved it. You've had a lot of chats, I know, about the dynamics. There's always people who get on better with others. But when I was in squads for a couple of years, the United boys, actually, most of them, like yourself, Scholesy, Nicky Bott, people they were good as gold. I didn't feel like there was a separation that people talk about. I think now they do look a close knit group. To be fair, they do look like they get on, which does help. But ultimately, that's only talked about when you're winning and losing. If you lose, they'll try and find a reason why. This is a talented group of players, and I think we focus probably a little bit too much on who's playing ahead of who and all that. And actually, as long as we play positively with the right, bit like the first game, I thought that was excellent. The tempo.
Do you think that's more important? Not who plays, it's how we play.
Yeah, because now we've got 5 subs. They're getting used more than ever. I mean, look, you could argue if we don't beat Senegal, God forbid, if he started Saka ahead of Foden, that's going to get. If he starts Foden ahead of Saka, if he starts Sterling ahead of Rashford or vice versa, it'll just get. It'll be picked on. It'll be talked about. It's how we set up the mentality. It's how we go into the game. Can we go in on the front foot, putting them to, really going after them?
Is that what you want? Aggressive football?
That's why I'd play Mount and Bellingham.
Would you?
Yeah, I know, I would. I was listening to a lot of debates yesterday, but I think those two, they set the tone. I think they set the tone with the press.
Yeah, you don't set up in a tournament with anything other than your favoured team. And so you can make tweaks along the way, but it gives us an insight into Gareth Southgate's thinking. And Mount was straight in there from the opening game, for the second game as well. Okay, it then got the change for Wales. But the Wales match, although England weren't through yet, they were all but there.
Yeah, they were.
There was a massive...
They lose 4-0.
Yeah, everything was stacked in their favour. So it was a changed team to players who may take the opportunity to flourish in this tournament. But we know where his colours are. He pinned them to the mast in that first game, which was Sterling, which was Saka, and which was Mount.
You think they'll play this game?
No. So I can't see Marcus Rashford being dropped. I think that's inconceivable.
What for Sterling, you think? Because that's a big call. Because you think he'd play them both?
I'm not sure he'll bring Raheem back in. which would be a massive call because he's been a mainstay of this England squad. He's been, and maybe I'll be wrong, but he's been ever dependable at international level for England, and he's really heavily respected by the other players. They all look up to him, but you can't drop Marcus Rashford now. Phil Foden, you could
Do you agree with that, Reece,
still tinker with.
With what?
Rashford, do you think he should play?
Just in the moment, yeah. I just think he's got to play. I just think that the way he scored the goals, but I just think it's more about like the way he's playing now. Like he just looks like, and I think about other teams. I think every other team are looking at our team and going after that game the other day, and the first game especially when he came on, and going, "Do you see Marcus Rashford?" Like I think he's got that. He's scaring defenders because every time he faces someone up, he's going at them.
Dynamic.
Yeah, and the fact that when you do that, and as a defender, immediately you go on the back foot, and I think England need that as well. You're putting people on the back foot, you're putting people under pressure. Immediately, people are fearful, so it gives people other spaces in other areas where you can exploit. And I think, especially Harry Kane needs that, where people now are gonna go, we got to double up on Marcus Rashford because he's scoring goals. He looks dangerous every time he gets it, and one player comes to him. That's why Jack Grealish is important. I think at times. He brings players to him, which can then gives other people space.
Do you know why I always look at it in a way? I've always done this, and you probably have as a defender. I always think, if I was coming up against England and I saw them in the team, who am I thinking he can cause us problems?
Yeah,
100%.
Now, Foden and Grealish, brilliant, what they do, but they don't really run behind you. Don't really beat people one-on-one. They play round you, and Grealish sometimes dribbles past, but generally plays more, get like little give and goes and stuff. Saka, Rashford, at it. Scares the life out of people.
Yeah, and Sterling.
But he's not quite at it compared to his best.
Yeah,
and he hasn't been in the best form at club level, but we've got to say he always does deliver for England. So if he comes back in,
I think he will put him.
It wouldn't surprise you. The only thing, he checks back more, as you say, whereas Rashford has got this fear factor about him now. And even when he went through and got smothered early on, that was the sign of a top striker in form. Okay, his finish wasn't there, but the way he latched onto it is like no other England player is capable of doing, it would seem. Bukayo Saka's not been in his best form at this tournament so far, but we know what he's capable of, and I think he's the star of English football for years to come. Foden in there as well. The fact that Gareth Southgate resisted the pressure to start him in the first and second game shows that it wouldn't surprise you if he brought him back out, even if it attracts criticism. But the one that I wanted to come back to when I said that he's pinned his colours to the mast at the start of the tournament was Mason Mount. I think his work rate, as seen by Gareth Southgate, is absolutely massive for the team, the way he leads the press. And I think against Senegal, Africa's top-ranked team. They're the Africa Cup of Nations champions.
Very athletic.
They're rated as being, they're regarded as being the most tactically advanced of the African teams. They are intense. They are physically extremely capable. They'll run all day. They're a high-level team. And so to put Mount in there, to harry, and maybe you'll change him after 60 minutes, 70 minutes, and you'll bring Foden on to unpick a hole.
I think you've got to be careful though. I sometimes we get into this narrative talking about Mount and got his work at it. Tonight went off the ball, but he's good on the ball.
Yeah.
He should score more goals because he gets in great positions. The reason he plays for Chelsea every week under every manager, and the reason he plays for Gareth as well, is because he keeps the moves going. He's technically very good. Doesn't lose the ball very often. Can see a pass. Good on the set plays. Whips in a great ball. I think it's not fair on him sometimes because of the other talent we got. We go, he starts to press. He does that as well. And he don't play in that Chelsea side under those in Champions League finals unless you can play because he put the ball through, didn't he?
And he's also got that bromance with Declan Rice as well. Yeah. And you guys would know about combinations and relationships and partnerships in the team. So if he sits in front of Bellingham and Rice, obviously all this we're talking about suggests that he's taking Henderson out of the team, which was...
I don't think Henderson starts.
Well, there is always I doubt it, but there's always the chance because he did it in the Euros. Could go back to a three at the back. But I wouldn't want to see that, would you?
I wouldn't want to see that. Not against these.
I don't think the public would want to see that.
Gareth doesn't care.
I don't think Gareth Southgate will care about what the public thinks on that front. If he thinks the three is right, then it will be Walker, Maguire and Stones with wing backs, and then you can still accommodate the extra midfielder. But I suspect that might be something he reverts to if England get through for a France, where you're going to have like renowned pace attackers from all areas.
Maybe,
but for this, I'm tempted to say he's going to stick with what he's done in the first 3 games.
That takes me to the next point. Kyle Walker. He's obviously been out for 2.5, 3 months.
Yep.
Comes in, played 60 minutes the last game. And the question was, does Gareth play him and maybe risk him in this game with a view to playing against France?
It hurt you when he come back with that, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't know where you was like, whoa.
Well,
Hadn't thought of that.
We was asked that for this game and this game only. We weren't talking about down the line. And would you play Walker? And we was like, I'd play Walker now, but I think I would. If you're thinking about the tournament and longevity in a tournament and staying in, I would definitely really consider not playing Walker this game.
I think there's no chance he won't start Walker because
He starts.
Yeah,
They've got Sarr, haven't they?
This is a guy who hadn't played since October the 2nd, was it?
Yeah.
He underwent groin surgery that is normally supposed to keep you out for a duration that would have gone beyond this tournament. He recovered ahead of schedule. He's come back from the brink on many times. Do you remember there was, I don't know if it was Nations League or Euros qualifiers, where did he get sent off or he made a mistake or something?
He gave a penalty win, and I think he got sent off as well, didn't
he said in interviews after that match, I don't know if that's me done at international level. He's reinvented himself for club and country. He's got stronger with age, and the way he didn't even get on the pitch in the second match, which I think would have been the plan if England had been ahead against the USA, give Kyle Walker 15, 20 minutes, play himself in, and then he starts in what might have been a dead rubber against Wales. Well, no, the Wales match had something on it. He started without any preparation matches. Everything I've heard from inside the camp suggests that he's been perfect, physical and technical and tactical and sort of behavioural condition in training. And the recovery pace for the likes of Ismail Assar, who are capable of running beyond, makes me think that, and he's proven at major tournaments, Kyle Walker, as well.
Yeah, I think the debate's not so much his capability, it's more the fact that if he plays 3 games, so if you assume we beat Senegal, then we play France, he'll have played, so that'd be 3 games in a condensed period, so you might be risking him. I
can't think of France yet.
No, I'd be tempted to play him personally, because actually 1 game at a time, deal with the next one when it comes. But he is, I think he is the one player. I mean, we've seen him against Mbappe before, and he's been quality.
I said this the other day. He's the only defender around who I think goes. I think there's better defenders, all round package, but he's the only defender that I think would go into a 1v1 situation with Kylian Mbappe and go, come on then, let's go.
I've seen it. He's done it. I've seen him do it where he's give him the line and go on. He doesn't do it.
Yeah.
The only other one may be Hakimi, but he obviously plays for PSG as well. So, but Walker will he'll give you everything you need defensively. I don't think he's got Trippier's quality going forward.
No, that's true. And Gareth does rely on Trippier heavily. So again, it wouldn't surprise you if he turns to him again. That said, Trippier's not been at his highest level in this tournament so far, even though he's been in great club form. And he showed in the Euros, Gareth Southgate, that Trippier can be taken in. He started left back in the opening match of the Euros, out, back in, and it doesn't affect him at all. He's an absolute top player and professional that doesn't seem to need that consistency of matches to reach a high level. And I just wanted to say to you, when you said you deal with the here and now, this match here, one, because you write Senegal off at your peril.
Also his job's on it.
His job's on it as well. But 2, like, I've got this feeling around the England camp. I mean, Gareth Southgate said it. You know, this camp is not just about collecting caps. I think there's a round of interviews which give some fascinating quotes about how they had a meeting in which they reminded themselves of the standards that need to be set and not slipped from. Because if you start slipping off the pitch, you might start slipping on the pitch. And he's talking about they've started making sure they all fold their kit properly for the kit man. Their socks, their shorts, their shirts.
We never done that, Dan.
Oh, exactly. No. It's a different level.
No.
We were doing just to get your slips and just throw them at the kit man. You know what I mean?
But I just think that's
land on his head like that.
I think that's a little bit of insight into this England camp that Stones is talking like that, because this isn't a developmental tournament. This is the first tournament I've been at with England in recent years where all of them in their media commitments have been saying we're here to win it. They've previously said we hope, or it'd be nice to go far, you never know. Russia 2018 was a surprise run to the final somewhat. They didn't come into it with massive expectations after Euro 2016. The Euros of 2021 was probably expected to go far, but home soil, got to the final and did well. This one is now or never, and so I do think they won't play for the France game. I think they'll play for the Senegal match.
Actually, on the selections, because I think we're saying there's only really two or three positions that he's thinking about. But with Maguire coming back in, I was talking to someone yesterday and interested in you and Rio on this. He's seamlessly gone back in, played great after everything that's gone on at United. Do you think it helps him? He's known Stone since he's a kid, and he played together. Like, was it South Yorkshire boys or whatever? Whatever it was, Sheffield. The fact that it's his mate and he's known him, do you think that's a comfortable thing for him? Do you think that's just secondary? He's just strong mentality, good player.
I think
having someone next to you.
Yeah.
Not gonna, he's
You
got
just
your
know,
back.
you know who they are. They got your back. I think like I can only apply that to when I was at United and I was playing with Nemanja Vidic. Where if I came out of the team for an injury or a period of time or whatever, come back and play with him, there was no thought process about where I need to be. It just is an innate feeling of where to be. You know, it's like when you play with someone all the time. It's not like we've got to talk and cajole each other through. It's just I know where you go, I know your movements, and you know mine, and we feed off each other. And I think they've got a really good partnership. But I just think with Harry, my main concern was the first game playing and getting through that unscathed. If he had any problems or blips in that game, then I think this tournament would have been a very different story for him. But it shows the immense strength in character and personality overriding anything to do with ability that he's got. And I think you have to just sit there and tip your hat to him so far.
100%.
So, 100%. But you know what? You know, in these tournaments as well, like we get these starlets and you get these young players, especially in England, Jude Bellingham, people talking about it. Have you got any insight into like who's trying to write the checks to try and take him? Rashford's got a contract situation coming up, I'm sure. Have you got any insights?
Also Mount, just to cure on top
Mount
of that.
as well,
Apparently he hasn't signed it. I mean, I'm surprised.
Is there problems with that? Do you know anything about that?
Well, I think if you look at the whole England squad, that's a story in itself.
Saka as well.
Harry Kane's out of contract in 2024 at Tottenham. We've got no news on whether he's going to sign a new deal or see it through to 2024 and leave as a free agent, or will Daniel Levy relent in the summer of 2023 with a year to go? That's a really interesting
Harry's just
situation.
got to stay there now, man. He's missed a boat.
Yeah,
just stay there.
100%. Get the statue.
Yeah.
Get the the beat Greaves record, or he's about to, or just as, can't remember.
Yeah.
Get the England goal record.
Premier League record. Just do it all and just stay there now.
So there's that situation. Bukayo Saka hasn't signed a new contract yet at Arsenal.
He will.
And it's his intention to. He's said it publicly, but it isn't a done deal yet. I think a lot of this will be done once these players are out of the major tournament scenario.
Show me the money time, innit?
It is. Well, it really is. And Marcus Rashford's stock is rising with every game. So maybe inadvertently he's played it quite well, because Manchester United are going to have to come to the table with, you'd presume, if this continues, with a more substantial offer than they might have a few months ago.
Who would be interested in Rashford, do you think?
Well, we've seen PSG in the past have been linked with him. Was it last summer? Going back to earlier in his career, there was a serious situation involving Barcelona when I think some talks took place. I don't know whether that was club to club or more with the sort of surrounds of Rashford. But there will be so much interest. It is interesting when you hear other nations speak about England, and they always point out Rashford.
Yeah.
And I think that'll be replicated at club level as well. I'd be surprised if he played for another club in the Premier League. You never know, but it would shock me given he's Man United through and through. And my suspicion is that he will end up signing a new contract there. But we're coming to it. I mean, United are in a relatively comfortable situation because they've got until the end of the year and then they've got an option year, like with most of their players. It's a similar situation with Luke Shaw. I know Rashford is in the public eye and he's starting to fly again. But that's a key situation for Manchester United to address. So with Mount, that is a tense situation. There is no agreement in place. You hear different things from different people on different days. They're going to reach a compromise. They're in trouble with this deal. I think the previous regime was working towards getting the deal that everyone would have liked. But then Chelsea were bought out. They've got new owners. They're going to be careful with their numbers. They might have to benchmark it. Reece James has got a new deal. if Mason Mount wants to go ahead of that, how's that going to affect the chemistry in the camp? Will the new owners at Chelsea try and pitch lower? That negotiation is a really interesting one that is not done.
Dan, would you be going in there if you was Mason Mount? I've heard like Man United are interested in him if he becomes available. It'd be big clubs who want him because he's a player that I think a lot of managers would like in their squads, in their teams. But would you be going in there and benchmarking and going, he's just signed a new deal there. I want to be above Reece James.
It's a difficult one. I think you've got to know your place at times and understand, where you're at in your career. When I was at Liverpool, I kind of knew what other people were earning and stuff, but kind of got happy with where I was at. Depends on your representation as well. It depends if you've got someone who's logical and sensible. I don't think you should ever be going in there and demanding because he's on this, I should have more. You find your level. But I'm surprised with Mount. I have to say, if I was looking after him, I'd want him to be on a decent contract compared to the lads because he plays every week.
Yeah,
of course. But I'd also be thinking, are you happy? Is it a club you love? Are you happy here and all those things? It's a footballing decision. He doesn't come across as the type of lad. I know he's got a good family apparently around him whose priority is finance. He's playing every week at one of the biggest clubs who are going to challenge, you'd think, with the money they're spending. I think that'll get done. I'm just surprised it's got to this point. But there's one thing. I mean, Rio's right. There's one thing for sure because he's been linked with Liverpool as well, hasn't he? Be perfect for Liverpool. But if he doesn't sign, there'll be plenty.
Yeah, I think there will be plenty of interest in him, but I also think he will end up signing. I think the representation has changed and he's gone more with his family, which we're actually seeing quite heavily a lot across the England squad. Similar with Declan Rice, and he's got a big situation coming up.
What does Declan do? I mean, the West Ham fans, don't shoot me for this and don't get upset again. I'm just talking about a quality player who is... He said in his press conference the other day about like his mates are all in Champions League games and that's somewhere where he sees himself at some point, which I don't think he can be like, he can't be vilified for.
Well, I speak to Dec a lot and his dad, and he's always, that he's so ambitious.
Yeah.
It's not, I'm desperate to leave, but the reality is, I think last year that even in last summer when he talked about, not him, the people talking about him leaving, I think Moisey spoke to him, West Ham spoke to him. It's like, look, we'll do another year. I think they've probably said to him, we'll let you go this summer. I think the reason he's saying that in his press conference, because I think West Ham, depending if they get the right amount, because they'll want a chunk, but it's time for him to go. So it's got to go.
Firstly, in that press conference, I know there was a bit of reaction among West Ham fans. I actually think he spoke well and it was quite refreshing. We can't ask these boys to speak freely, and then when they do, batter them.
The fans aren't logical like that.
But I think West Ham fans they'd wish him well now.
But it is a sign of his ambition. I don't think he was giving a come and get me plea because he doesn't need to. The interest will be there from, I don't know, the likes of Man United have been linked with him in the past.
He wants to win things.
Yeah.
His debut,
he wants to go and win things.
Firing shots.
But Chelsea have been heavily linked with him as well. And so I think the big
That's
clubs
his team.
will be there. But the thing we got to look at here, we understand that West Ham were never going to sell him last summer.
No.
Point blank, no. Go to the World Cup, have a good World Cup. You then have, 2 years to go on your contract because if there's an option in there. And I think David Sullivan and the West Ham hierarchy would then be minded to do a deal at the right price. What is the right price and who's willing to go with it? I think, there's this talk of 100 million plus. But for Declan Rice, who's a magnificent player, he's a magnificent character, as you'll clearly know.
Lad.
I think that top level is waiting for him. And if it's done in the right way, I think the West Ham fans will understand. Back to your point on Bellingham, which I've not answered. He is a generational talent. It doesn't need me to say, and his stock is only going to rise. You could really envisage him being an England captain and a star for club and country for many years to come. He's been really brought up well, great family around him. Another whose family are really in control of the situation on that theme of the England squad. His body is built fantastically. His brain is advanced. He's an old head on young shoulders. And for that reason, this is going to be a really calm and conscious decision. He's not going to be pushed into anything. He may well stay at Dortmund if he and his family feel that that's the right thing for them to do. And I hear quite a lot of that around the industry. Don't discount the idea that he might stay at Dortmund and feel it's not quite time to go yet. If he does feel it's time to go, then clubs will come forward with the appropriate money for Borussia Dortmund. Make no mistake about that. So you've seen the likes of Liverpool. Yeah, there's admiration there, no shadow of a doubt.
I don't think Liverpool got the money to pay.
Well, it's
to pay him now.
But there's
you mean
the whole package
for the transfer fee? But there's a wider point here. Like we revealed and we've talked about it on here, that Liverpool are on the market. They're open to a full sale. But in recent days, the Boston Globe, which is owned by John Henry, has reported that it's more likely to end up as a partial sale to bring in finances to fund transfers, because they don't have at the moment assets to sell in their self-sustaining model in the way that they did so with Coutinho, for example. And so Liverpool are a player in this. We've got to think of Champions League qualification as well when we come to Jude Bellingham. And that's one of the reasons why Real Madrid are said to be a big player in this. I think there's admiration at Manchester City, but I don't think they're necessarily at the front of the queue as things stand. Every club in world football will take him. And one thing I always caveat with him is he's 19 years old.
Yeah,
he's got time, but we also need to be respectful in the conversation around him. He's developing beautifully, and let's let that continue. He will be a big talking point, but let's not overburden him.
His pathway's more obvious. He'll go through his superstar. You know what he is.
He can go wherever he wants.
Declan's an interesting one. I've been having a few conversations recently, and people disagree. I don't know what I haven't asked you, Ree, but I think, and I know he'd probably like this as more as well, I think he could be a really devastating box-to-box play and get goals.
Yeah,
I think he can get double figures in goals. Imagine him in a City side with Rodri behind him, sitting, and him and De Bruyne, for example.
Do you think he's being contained too much for England?
Let me give you my West Ham. They're not a possession-based team. He has to sit in more because the other fella Souček bombs on and goes forward. He's restricted. On the occasion when West Ham are desperate and you see him bursting forward and trying to make things happen in the last 10, 20 minutes of games, it's an unbelievable sight the way he goes past people. He's got those little give and goes around the box. He'll get double-figure goals. I don't think someone should be buying him as a holding midfielder. And speaking to him, I don't think he wants to play there long term.
I'll be honest, I watched him in the Europa League, especially last season, and the way he was opening the game up for West Ham through driving with the ball, not necessarily passing, it was more getting it in a tight situation and then coming out the other end and then driving 30 yards with the ball, which I think you'd say, surely, as an opposing midfielder, that's not a good sight. The likes of Dembele, remember Dembele,
very similar way of
Yaya Toure being able to run past people. It's a scary sight. Now, it need be time to grow into developing to have the effect and impact that those guys have. But I think he has good capabilities to do that. I think playing him, like you say, I really agree with that. As a holding midfielder only, probably negates some of his other finer assets that he has in his game and his locker that he's not being able to showcase.
And even with England, I think sometimes he's safe. And great discipline in being safe, because he's got so many players on the pitch who are the creative ones. He has to be the one that contains his own desire to try and get involved in the game, because he's the only one who's holding. But I think long term, I mean, when Stevie G came on the scene, everyone was saying he's going to be a holding midfielder. But he became one of the best attacking midfielders. And I think Declan can do it.
Well, listen, guys, I could sit here all day and talk to you guys. Listen, we're going to have to roll it up. Really good to see you.
A pleasure.
Debut. It's a solid debut. Solid debut that. You'll be
What did you give yourself there?
7. Always room for improvement.
No, good.
So
good
score prediction?
Good to see you.
Pleasure.
Quickly.
Score predictions. I'm going to go for England by 2 goals. 2-0.
I don't want to jump on that, but that's exactly what I was going to say. I think England will come through strong. Don't think it's going to be easy by any means. Do not write off Senegal, but England have got some momentum, and I'm going to go for a 2-0. To be different to you, I'll say 3-0.
I'm just going to go 1-0 edgy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a bit
I think we'll easily win this game. Make it easy.
Well,
what England showed against
different
Wales,
opinions.
A far inferior Wales team to the Senegal side they're going to face, is if they get one, something releases in England. A bit of the shackles. We saw it against Iran as well. It's whether they get the one, which they didn't do against the USA. But the attacking flair that England have, the lack of Sadio Mane for Senegal, makes you think that maybe tips the balance.
Actually, I'm going to say it here and now. I think England win this World Cup. Good night. Thank you.